SCP Secure Copy copy files between hosts on a network. It uses SCP for data transfer and uses the same for authentication. SCP will ask for passwords and passphrases if they are needed for authentication. Any file may contain a host and uses specifications to indicate the file to be copied to or from that host. Copies between two remote hosts are permitted.
To execute SCP command, we have to write first SCP, then the source, then destination. In source, we have to write user, @ then IP address, then the destination of the file, same as in destination.
SSH. SSH is a program for logging into a remote machine and for executing commands on a remote machine. It is used to replace login and RSH and provides secure encrypted communication between two untrusted hosts over a secure network. X7 connections and arbitrary TCP/IP ports can also be forwarded over the secure channel. Now how to execute SSH command. In SSH command, write SSH space hostname /user.
In the following video, we try to SSH into a remote machine which is secure shell, and we try to remotely access the machine's shell using SSH protocol. And we in this video we show how to run the SSH from the command line and connect to a remote machine. Now we are running an ls command on the remote machine. We logged in as Manav @192.168.54.170, and now we are checking the uname command. As it shows, it's a Linux operating system running Ubuntu, and we can also check the network statistics by ifconfig, and then we clear it, and we can log out from the machine using exit.
Access available to you. And then the other is SCP, which stands for Secure Copy, and this is a great way to move files around back and forth, and is much more secure than something like FTP. So we're going to start off. I'm in terminal, my command line on my local machine, which is named Beach, and I'm going to SSH so that I can connect to a remote server. And the first thing I need is the username on that server, which is tester, and then and then put the actual address of where I'm going. Sometimes this will be an IP address, but oftentimes you can use the domain name. Now when I hit enter and tried to connect here, it said it refused that because it wasn't connecting to port 22, which is the default port for SSH. So sometimes when you get connection information, they'll tell you you have a port number because it's something other than 22, and that's important. So the way we add that information is at the beginning of my command here, I'm going to put a -p for port and then just type in the number. So I can connect, and I'm just telling SSH specifically to use this port on the server to get in. So when I do that, now it works. It prompts me for my password, which I'll go ahead and type in. And now I'm actually on my remote server. I'm not on my local desktop anymore on this command line. So you can see this is telling me my location. It's not my local. So I have full command line access now on a server somewhere out in, I don't know, St. Louis, Texas? I'm not sure. So if I do a working directory here, I can see I'm in my home directory. I have a folder in here, and I can move around and pretty much do what I want to from the command line, given the permissions that I have for this particular user on this server. So the thing I want to do now is actually go and find something that I want to actually download to my local machine from the remote. I want to grab this files directory because there's a bunch of files on the server. I don't have them locally. I'm just going to copy those down. Typically you would probably use something like FTP for that, but we're going to use SCP because it's cooler. I can go in and you know, get an individual file if I wanted, or you can go in and get an entire directory. And so I'm going to want to get the files directory. One thing we'll need to know is the path. So I have this path in my prompt, but if I do a print working directory here, I need the full path all the way from the root of the server. So I'm just going to copy this so I can paste it later so I don't have to remember all of this and type it in, because that's a real pain. So I've copied the path to the thingy that I want on my remote server. I'm going to exit, and that logs me out of the remote server, and now you can see I'm back on my local machine. So let me clear this out, and let's look at SCP. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to want to do is, like previously, I'm going to type the letters SCP, that's my actual command. And then before I start actually writing it out for real, we need to put two locations in, and we need to put from and then to. That's the order they have to go in. So wherever I'm copying from, and then where it's going to. Now I'm copying from the remote server, where I just was logged in previously. So I need to give it the full information. It needs to know what server and how to access it. So I need to put in my user, @ and then the address on the web, and then that's the server, a colon to say, okay, that's the server information. Now where on that server am I going? And that's where I'm going to paste in the path that I had just previously copied. Now I could just type in a particular file name. If I just wanted one file, I could just put that in here, but I actually want to get the whole files directory, so I'm going to leave it with what I've pasted. And then the second part, so all of that is the from location. The second part is to location. So I just want to load this locally to my laptop onto the desktop. So that's just a local path because I'm on my local machine and it knows where that is. Now I have this files directory I want rather than an individual file. So like other things on the command line, I need to tell the command to do this recursively, because otherwise it's just going to want one thing. So let's walk through this command. SCP-R means recursive because I'm getting a directory instead of an individual file. Then I'm saying this is the actual server that I want to connect to. This is where my from is. I put the colon in there, and then this is the actual directory I want. This whole thing is from, so I'm telling it to copy recursively from that address, and then to is simply to my desktop here, and that's the path for that. So that's my command, but I have one last thing I need to do, because remember we have a port on this. This is using the same port as SSH, it's using the same connection. You have to use a capital P with SCP. I used a lowercase p with SSH. It's just the way it is. Capital P in the port number, and now when I enter I get prompted for my password, just like with SSH, and bam, it just went ahead and downloaded everything. So now if you go over and look on my desktop, I have a files directory, and the 3 files that were on my server are now copied down, not moved, but copied down to my local machine, and I can do what I want with them now. So it's that simple, that fast. And then we can just, I'll just show you here. Remember, it's the whole from to, so if I had something on my laptop that I wanted to send to the remote machine, I would just change the order. I would put my path here on my local machine, so like it would be desktop files, and then I would then give the connection information and the location on the remote server to go to. So just remember SCP from to, recursive if you have a directory, and put in a port number if you need that. And that's all it takes to access a remote server in a very secure way.
Here is a short quiz for you to test yourself. How much have you learned in this lecture? The first question asks you, what would be the corresponding entries in the cron table to achieve the following? Execute full backup script stored at /home /any user /full backup on 10th June 8:30 AM. B part asks you, how would you execute backup shell script stored at this location at 10 AM and 9 PM every day? That is, you execute the script twice every day. In C part, you have to execute a checkup script stored at the given location every hour from 8 AM to 5 PM, basically at in regular intervals of 1 hour each, like at 8 AM, 9 PM, 10 AM, 11 AM and so on, every day. And in the fourth part, you again have to do the same, but you do not have to execute the script every day, but only on the weekdays, that is from Monday to Friday. The second question asks you to write a command to securely copy a file from a remote computer stored at /home /example /sm.sh. This is the location of the remote file which is stored at the remote computer, to the documents folder in the local computer. The username of the remote computer host is example and the domain name is foobar.edu. Think about these for a moment and then we'll explore their answers. Let us quickly go through the answers once. This is the answer for the first question, A part. It would execute the script stored at this location on 10th June 8:30 AM. Since the day of the week is irrelevant, so we have used an asterisk or wildcard entry for this field. This is the answer for the B part. It would execute the script stored at this location twice a day, that is on at 10 AM and on 9 PM, that is 21 hours. I have separated these two values using a comma. This would execute the script twice a day. We can always do that. The minute is 00, that is the starting of the hour, and the day of the month and the day of the week are all wildcard entries, since I want the script to be executed every day. Here is the answer for the C part. It would execute the script every hour from 8 hours to 17 hours, that is from 8 AM to 5 PM. It is same as writing 8, 9, 10 up to 17. This is a shorthand and a useful form. We have used a hyphen instead of multiple commas over here. Again, since I want the script to be executed every day, we have used asterisks for these three entries or fields. This is the answer for the D part. It is same as C part, except that I want the script to be executed only on weekdays and not on weekends. So we have changed the weekdays, that is the day of the week, from 1 to 5. Earlier it used to be an asterisk over there. This is the answer for the second question, in which we were supposed to write a command to securely copy a file from a remote computer to a local computer. It's pretty simple. SCP, username, domain name, the required file with the full path, and the local path. The file would be copied from this location to this local location. Now let's summarize what we have learned in this lecture. We started with cron daemon and we learned that cron daemon can be used for scheduling tasks. Entries in cron tab drive the cron daemon. However I edit the cron table using cron tab -e command, those changes would be used to the entries in that table would be used to schedule tasks. New user accounts are added through user add command. chown command is used to change owner, and chgrp is used to change the group of a folder. User del is used to delete a user account. SCP command is used for securely copying files to or from a remote computer, and SSH, which stands for secure shell, is used to securely execute commands on a remote computer.